gain momentum, although there has been some progress. The EU summit held last December did see a few positive steps taken on this front, and the upcoming December summit is dedicated to the same theme, but the expectations for progress are not particularly high. So far, I have focused on the Union's problem areas, but the situation isn't all bleak. Despite the weakening of its relative position, the EU has some notable achievements in its foreign policy. For example, the expansion to the Western Balkans and reconciling the dispute between Serbia and Kosovo should certainly be as successes. The EU has also maintained effective dialogue with its neighbours. Furthermore, we can be satisfied with the Union's activity in the EU 3+3 Iran negotiations. From the perspective of effectiveness, the preparation of a comprehensive strategic framework for the Horn of Africa was a positive achievement. It facilitates better coordination and steering of the EU's activities and instruments. They are related to development, cooperation, humanitarian aid and political processes, as well as trade and security and defense policy. In crisis areas in general, the EU has made progress in adopting a comprehensive approach. The EU is a significant actor in crisis management. This is evidenced by a total of 26 operations with over 80,000 personnel involved. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I stated at the beginning of this speech, a number of different parties have conducted analysis of the European Union's foreign policy and external action service and suggested improvements to the current state of affairs. It's encouraging to see that this subject attracts such interest and debate. The economic crisis hasn't entirely eliminated enthusiasm in developing the European Union's functions. The non-papers submitted by Member States a number of common proposals that appear to have strong backing. The next issue I would like to focus on is improvement suggestions. Perhaps the most unanimously held view is that the High Representative needs to have effective deputizing arrangements. However, the question of the practical implementation of such arrangements divides opinion. The proposed solution include a permanent political substitute, ministers for foreign affairs, the President and the Troika, or EU officials as deputies. Another proposal that has received considerable support is offering consular services to all citizens of Member States at EU delegations. This would be a way of increasing visibility towards citizens. The issue is particularly important to small Member States, which have also shown support for joint diplomatic missions and extensive joint reporting. Enhancing the steering of the EAS with regard to EU delegation is also at the top of many lists when it comes to proposals for improvement. The delegations have a key role in implementing political coherence, horizontal questions, and integrated approach. Establishing a consistent steering policy is therefore essential. Also, many Member States are calling for a stronger external action service. One example of this is a non-paper prepared by Germany on the subject of which we have been all reading in the newspapers. According to the proposal, the EAS should be further strengthened to ensure a coherent, comprehensive and integrated EU approach to external action. Germany is calling for the EAS to be responsible for neighbourhood policy, as efforts of the Commission and EAS are currently overlapping to some extent in that area. This proposal is understandable, considering how the messages from the two organizations haven't always been consistent. The non-paper also proposes that programming in the area of development cooperation should be transferred entirely from the Commission to the EAS, and at present the EAS is responsible for country-specific and regional programming, while the Commission is responsible for thematic programming. However, due to the Commission's greater resources, in practice, it dominates all three areas of programming. Finland has highlighted the importance of setting a strong strategic vision and priorities as the foundation of activities. Other countries have also expressed similar views. More consistency is needed between the EU's external action and its other branches of activity. This problem could be almost entirely resolved if the High Representative were more active in wearing the dual hats that the position entails. As the Vice President of the European Commission, she should systematically coordinate the work of the RELEX commissioners. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, there are many analyses and proposals in the air. Achieving a consensus between member states will not be simple. Nevertheless, this is the right time to feed the discussion and make constructive proposals. I would like to conclude by presenting my 7-point proposal on what measures should be taken, and some of these proposals have already been referred to in my speech. And these proposals are inspired by not only the report of the Foreign Policy Committee of the Finnish Parliament, but also the joint report equipping the European Union for the 21st century by the European Policy Centre and the Finnish Institute of International Affairs. First, the European Union needs to prepare a comprehensive external relations strategy. The Union's strength in external relations is based on a diverse range of instruments, the significance of which in crisis management is undeniable. The challenge lies in concretizing this joint resolve. Different activities must be strategically and efficiently linked together. Strategy isn't necessarily only linked to security, but also to promoting the interests of the EU's common external relations. A more coherent policy also has economic significance, the importance of which should not be underestimated at a time of tighter budgetary discipline. Second, clearer priorities should be set for the EU's activities in terms of its objectives for cooperation with various international organizations and strategic partners. The EU should specify general partnership principles. In addition, the EU should identify shared strategic, political or economic interests with each strategic partner. The results of cooperation should also be evaluated for both strategic partners and international organizations. Third, the opportunities presented by the Lisbon Treaty for the coordination of external action should be utilized in full. The High Representative must take the lead in coordinating external action. This requires a better attitude of cooperation from all parties involved, including the Commission. If better coordination and coherence is not achieved, transferring certain responsibilities to the High Representative and the EAS should be considered. Fourth, the Member States must be fully involved in the EAS. The willingness and capacity of Member States to commit to a more common and consistent foreign and security policy is essential to effective action. Achieving shared ownership would be supported by the EAS consulting and negotiating with Member States more than it has in the past. Information sharing should not be a one-way street. Ministries of Foreign Affairs could share more information with the EAS. Fifth, the network of delegations must be made more effective and beneficial to not only the European Union, but also its member states. In practice, this means more effective communication between Brussels and the delegations and the handling of consular services. The EU already has delegations in 141 countries, and only 5 member states have more extensive networks of their own. With many member states having reduced the size of their network of diplomatic missions due to economic pressures, achieving synergies is a high priority. Sixth, the European Union must strengthen and develop its common security and defence policy. This would allow the EU to increase its significance as a security community as the US is increasingly shifting its focus to Asia. Europe must take on greater responsibility for its security. Cuts in defence budgets also create a need for closer European cooperation and synergies. The Weimar Initiative, which I already mentioned, provides a foundation for achieving concrete results, and it is also important to include not only civilian crisis management, but also prevention and mediation as part of a more coherent EU crisis management policy. Seventh, sufficient resources must be allocated to the management of external action. In order to secure the EU's key objective of exercising global influence at the operational level, the EAS must have the required level of funding. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is my list, and I have been listening to other lists which have been proposed by different parties, and it's very exciting then at the end to notice what will be the results after this year. But we all know that the European Union foreign and security policy is the art of opportunities. Member states must perceive that they can protect their foreign and security policy interests while also supporting the coherence and strengthening of EU activities. This is not an easy task, but I think that we must succeed. Without an effective and strong European Union that exercises international influence, the global challenges will be much more difficult to manage. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mary, for this great presentation. I'm going to allow 5 minutes for questions, if anybody has any questions. But just before that, may I just remind you that we would like to keep the communication going. So for those of you who would like to tweet about the event,